Hey everybody, so today I want to do something a little fun. I want to take a look at MSTR and what I think it might be worth per share price 1 decade from now, 10 years. So today is November 10th, 2025. What do I think the price is going to be on November 10th, 2035? Now, obviously, I could be very, very wrong doing this, but I do want to take a look. And this is based off of the latest earnings call that they had with Michael Saylor's numbers himself. And essentially what I'm going to be doing is taking a look at three numbers and then just applying them to their expectations and their goals, and then seeing what the share price will be 1 decade from now if they're able to follow through on that. So if you don't know what MSTR is, they're formerly known as MicroStrategy. They've now changed their name to Strategy. They're run by Michael Saylor. And starting in 2020, they've shifted towards a Bitcoin treasury company. What is a Bitcoin treasury company? What do? They buy Bitcoin. And that's it. That's their whole model right there. That's their entire business. They buy Bitcoin. Well, what makes it so valuable is that they increase the amount of Bitcoin per share. So you can just go buy Bitcoin and you can hold it and the price will go up or down, whatever it is, but you're thinking that over time it'll at least go up a little bit. You will get to track the price of Bitcoin, obviously, but if the amount of Bitcoin per share that you're holding goes up over time, let's say it doubles, as well as the price of Bitcoin doubling, you'll get a 4x return, whereas if you just held Bitcoin, you'll get a 2x return. There's more risk involved, obviously. It's a company, you don't own the Bitcoin, there's a whole lot with it, but that's the risk you're taking to potentially get more reward. So let's see what are the things that we're going to look at here. We're going to look at what the Bitcoin price is projected to be according to certain models, what Michael Saylor might think in a decade. The number of Bitcoin per share, that's the main one. I think that's the most certain one or easiest to predict if some of the other things fall into place. And then lastly, its valuation or its multiple net asset value, MNAV. So we'll start off with the first thing, which is Bitcoin per share. This one I've sort of outsourced completely to the Bitcoin power law. This is what Michael Saylor seems to think is going to be the predictor of price over the next decade, is the Bitcoin power law. Essentially, it shows that if you take log price by log time, it sort of comes out in this perfect linear fashion. And so far it's been right for 16 years. It doesn't mean it's going to continue to be right, especially as the price gets higher and higher. It takes up more and more market share. It's probably going to be harder to maintain, in my opinion. But, we got some things coming up in the next decade. Social Security is going to become insolvent in like 2033 or something like that. So there's things that might, push people towards store values like Bitcoin and gold. And I think that'll help, at least in the near term. So what does the Bitcoin power law say that the price of Bitcoin is going to be in 10 years? Well, if you go to the Bitcoin power law calculator, it'll give you an exact price, and it could be off, right? So I'm just going to say the exact price. It could be off by $300,000. It could be off by a lot. But it says on November 10th, 2035, it'll be worth $2,066,716.82. That's what it says. It could be 1.7 million. It could be 2.5 million. It could be way off. It could be $500,000, right? This is what the Bitcoin power law says. This is what Michael Saylor himself, he's the former CEO and chairman of MicroStrategy, executing this play. This is kind of what he's going off of. He hasn't said that explicitly, but you hear him talk about his 30% predictions, and you're like, okay, this is what he's working with. The 30% prediction, he says, Bitcoin's going to grow on average at 30% per year for the next 20 years, from now until 2045. And that's what he's saying. It kind of mirrors the power law. So I think that's what we're going to go with here. So basically, $2,066,000. And then he said that his goal, this gets into the business. I'm not really going to touch on this in this video, how they increase the Bitcoin per share. That's for another video. But right now, he's got 200,000 Satoshis per share, or 0.002 Bitcoin per share. And he says his goal is to increase that by 2.8 times over the next decade. So right now, 200,000 Satoshis per share, or again, 0.002 Bitcoin. He wants to increase that to 0.0056 Bitcoin, or 560,000 Satoshis per share. So basically a 2.8x multiple. And then lastly, this is the most speculative part of my price prediction. This also comes from Michael Saylor, although he's touched on this a little bit less as of recent, and that's the multiple to the net asset value, the MNAV. So this, if you take a look at current stocks, how are they valued? So right now, if you go and say, what should the price of a stock be worth, or what is it, and how do they get to that? One of the things or metrics that they'll use is earnings per share. So essentially, how much money did the company earn last quarter or last year? And then how many shares are that? And then what is the price? So if you think a company isn't going to grow very much, it's probably going to have a lower earnings per share, say 10, 20, something like that. Or you think it's going to grow a lot, you'll say, you know what, I think it's going to go up quite a bit. I'll get my money back. And the reason for this is that markets are forward looking, right? If you see a company and they have $1 earnings per share, just to keep it simple, of $1 earnings per share, and you don't think they're going to grow, then you wouldn't pay any more than $1 per share, right? But if you say, you know what, in the future, you kind of get to choose your timeline and your growth rate and speculate on these stocks a little bit, speculate with reason, you take the data in, you take a look at it, say, all right, based off that, this is what I think it's going to be. Then you would say, you know what, it's got $1 in value right now, but in the future, I think it's going to be worth $2 or $3. So I'm willing to pay $2 or $3 per share for it now. That's sort of the idea with it. So to give you a reference, most companies are probably around 20 to 30 for their earnings per share. Bigger companies are going to be worth a lot more than that. NVIDIA, they got about a 50 earnings per share EPS right now. Some companies like Palantir, theirs are like 500, which is a ton. So basically people are betting that they're going to get a lot of business essentially in the future, and that it's going to super pay off. You know, maybe they're right, maybe they're not. I don't know anything about that stock other than their earnings per share is ridiculously high. That's all I know. So what do I think it's going to be the MNAV for MicroStrategy in the future, and what is it now? Well, historically, it's fluctuated between about 1.5 to 3 up and down. Right now, I think is a great time to buy. It's really low. It's at 1 point, now it's fluctuating, so you know it's not perfect, but it's about 1.1 is the MNAV. So it's barely trading above its net asset value. So that would be like, you know, in earnings per share terms, that would be like, it was trading at like a 1.1, you know, you don't expect much growth. Michael Saylor has said that he thinks that his earnings per share should be attached to, or excuse me, his MNAV should be attached to speculation on the ability to grow the Satoshis per share. And like he said, his stated goal is 2.8 MNAV over MNAV, 2.8 Satoshis per share increase over the next decade. So if there's 1 Bitcoin in there now, over the next decade, he wants there to be 2.8 Bitcoin. And that, he says, should be the floor basis for the MNAV of the stock. Okay, this I hope we're all following along, sort of jumbled around a little bit, but I just want to get this video out there. That should be the floor. If you think it's going to grow by that much in the next decade, people should be able to be forward looking and say, okay, that's what it'll be worth. That should be the MNAV minimum that people say that it should have for the stock. And Michael Saylor said that he wants a goal of 4. Now, he said that at the Q2 earnings call. He did not say that at the Q3 earnings call. You know, he's had some moving around, things like that. So I think he's maybe dropped that a little bit, but for that, we're just going to continue with that. So right now, there's a Bitcoin price of about 105,000, about 200,000 Satoshis per share. That's metric number 2. So number 1, Bitcoin price, 105,000. Number 2, Satoshis per share at about 200,000. And the MNAV, third metric, is about 1.1. You put that all together and you get $240-ish per share. That's what it's trading at today. So a decade from now, start with the biggest thing. Again, if you don't, look into Bitcoin, if you don't have a bullish outlook on Bitcoin, I can understand you being like, all right, Andrew, I don't really care about any of this. Your first part, I don't even believe. So fair enough. But at $2,066,000 price for Bitcoin 1 decade from now, it's part one. So 2 million. Part two, 560,000 Satoshis per share, or 0.0056 Bitcoin per share. And the MNAV is going to grow from 1.1 to 4. Okay, so if you take all that and add it together or multiply them together, you get a share price of $46,294.46. So what am I saying? I'm saying that I think over the next decade, it's going to go from about $240 per share to about $46,000 per share. Okay, and I know a lot of people are like, all right, Andrew, thank you for the Moon Boy math. Thank you for dreaming on this YouTube video. And it is, if this doesn't happen, don't worry. I'm not going to be mad. It's going to be okay. I'll be like, you know what? Dreamed a little bit, but it didn't happen. That's okay. But I do want to point out that this isn't that crazy. NVIDIA, they're the #1 stock right now. They came out of nowhere. If you go back a decade and you look from 2015 to 2025, they had an even bigger rise. So if the MSTR prediction is to come true from 240,000 to 46,000 in a decade, that's going to be an average growth rate of 69.2%. Well, NVIDIA over the last decade, from November 2015 to November 2025, had a 74% growth rate. So, it's not out of the question. It's not like it's never been done before. It's not like, it's not like it hasn't been done for a large company that then became the #1 company in the world like NVIDIA did. I'm not even saying they're going to become the #1 company. I'm saying that they're just going to have really, really good growth over the next decade built on the back of Bitcoin. So that's what I think. Now, what do you do with this information? You just be inquisitive. You go look into it. I would not particularly advise anyone, no financial advice here, but I do own a good bit of MSTR. And even if my prediction is wrong here, shoot for the moon, land among the stars. Like, I think it's going to be really incredible over the next decade what MSTR can do. So, take a look into it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.